a little bit earlier, we're going to be discussing today the speaking task number 1. And as I told you, this is, well, considered by many test takers to be the most difficult part of the exam. But you're going to discover with me that it's not actually that difficult. It's actually, I would say, in my opinion, a very approachable part whenever you understand how to do it and whenever you get the structure to respond to this question. Okay, so well, let us start with it. Let me please share my screen with you. And we're going to start with the presentation that I have very gladly prepared for you. Well, here we are. And start. Well, fantastic. So, TOEFL speaking section task number 1. So let us remember what we discussed yesterday. If you didn't watch yesterday's class, please make sure to do it. It's a very important information, the one that we have discussed yesterday. But we basically said that the independent task, that is the first question and the first task of the speaking section, is a very personal question. We have said that in this part of the exam is one of the very, very few spots in which you are able to actually express what you think. Because remember, for example, our previous classes, when we were discussing the reading section or the listening section, that many, many times I told you, right? Several times I repeated and repeated, please, dear students, don't include your opinion here. Don't include what you think in your responses. Well, in this case, in the first question of the speaking section, the type of question number 1, independent question, you are actually allowed and encouraged to give your opinion, okay? So I think that most of you are going to enjoy that because this is, as I say, one of those parts in the exam in which you are actually very much welcomed whenever you offer your opinion, your perspective on different issues and topics, and you add, of course, your own knowledge, data, and, well, concerns about that particular issue, okay? Well, let us continue then. As I was mentioning, in this first task, you will be required to say your opinion on a general topic, and you will have to defend and sustain it. You will have little time to finish the task, which breaks down to the following: a preparation of 15 seconds, your students, and a response of 45 seconds. Now, what is the thing here? The thing is that, as I have said, in this case, the response is asking you to offer your opinion on an issue, but it's also asking you to defend it, as you can see. And that's the reason why I posted the picture of this man here, Ben Shapiro, very famous political commentator. And the reason why I offered here the picture of this man, let us wait for your classmates who are joining us. So yeah, as I'm explaining right now, okay, to those of you who are just joining us, we're discussing the first task of the speaking section. And I'm saying that in this section, dear students, you are required to offer your opinion on a very general and controversial topic. And you're not merely required to give your opinion and to offer your own knowledge, data, and concerns on that topic, but you're also required to actually offer a defense of that particular position, to argue and to offer some reasons, some illustrations that defend and exemplify why you hold that particular perspective and position. And I was explaining here that the reason why I posted the picture of this man is because he's a very famous debater. Probably you know about him. And well, he's said to be a very good debater, right? You know what is a debate, right, dear students? When you have to enter a platform with an opponent, and with this opponent, you are basically going to be discussing a topic and you are going to defend a position. Let's say it's about, I don't know, if the word is, it's plain or it's rounded, right? And let's say you're going to defend that the word is plain. So you go there and you say, okay, I believe that the word is plain, and you offer some reasons, right? I believe this because of this reason, and you offer some illustrations as well to defend your position. And your opponent, in that case, right, your adversary in this debate would be arguing for the contrary position, right? He would say, no, but the word is actually rounded. So he would say, I have these reasons, I have these proofs, etc., etc. So imagine whenever you are responding this task, dear students, that you are debating. I want you to identify this task with a debate, because it's basically what you're going to be doing. You're going to be stating your opinion and also defending your opinion and perspective on an issue, just as you would do it if you were debating, okay? So please have that in mind. You are debating basically on this task. You are stating your opinion, you are saying what you think, but you're also required to defend it, to offer reasons, illustrations, arguments, information, data, in order to demonstrate why you think that's the correct answer, and also to convince your audience. Because remember that very important part of debate is convincing your audience that your response is actually true, right? That in this case, better said, your position is actually true. You want to convince, right? Coming back to our previous illustration, that you want to convince your audience, people who are listening to the debate, that the war is playing. And your adversary wants to convince people as well that actually, no, it is the case that the war is rounded. And he wants to convince the audience that, well, it's his position that the one that is right and yours is wrong. In this case, you have to do exactly the same, dear students. You're going to be defending your position, stating your position, and you want to convince your audience. In this case, who is your audience? Well, certainly your friends or me are now your audience. Your audience is the reviewer, the person who is going to listen to your response, as we discussed yesterday, and of course, is the only person who determines your score, who punctuates your performance. You want to convince him that the position you are going to be representing and defending is right, is correct, okay? So please, as I say, try to be as convincing as you can in this part of the exam, okay? Very good. So in order for me to, of course, in order for me to make this way understandable to you, let me please right now present you some examples that I prepared for this class, okay? So let me please, let me see here, no message, the WhatsApp group. So let me please show you a topic, okay? And then I'm going to be showing you a response that I recorded myself for this question. So in this case, the question would be a topic like this one. Let us read it together. It says, some people believe that raising children is the most beneficial thing a person can do for society. Others are of the opinion that a person's career is their most important task in life. Which opinion do you find more persuasive? Okay, as you can see, dear students, this is an statement, this is a topic very similar to the ones you're going to receive on the exam as well. These are very general topics, as you can see, but they are also very much controversial. This is one of these very old debates in which people say, what is the actual and single most important contribution you can make for society? Some people say having a family, being a good man, etc. Other people say, no, it's actually your career, what you can professionally attain to help people's life, the most important contribution you can make to society. Well, in this case, this sentence or this statement, this topic is questioning, is questioning you about that particular issue. What is the greatest contribution a person can do for society? Well, and in this case, as you can see, dear students, this question is limiting your responses to two different possibilities, right? Because look at it. Although this is supposed to be a free question, it is not totally free if you think about it, because look at the question. It says, some people believe that raising children is the most beneficial thing a person can do for society, whereas others believe that a person's career is their most important task in life. And it says, which opinion, right, from the ones they have given you, these two possibilities, do you find more persuasive? So as you can see, it's basically as if they were limiting the range of responses, right? They are telling you, okay, we want to listen to your opinion. Yeah, of course. But we want to listen to your opinion with regard to one of these perspectives. So in this case, dear students, these questions for the first task of the speaking section are always like this, okay? 90% of the time, your questions are going to be free questions, yes, like this one, but limited in the sense that they give you the options you can go for. They give you something to choose from. You go for this one or for this one that I'm offering you, but you cannot, for example, come up with a third option, or you should not, for example, do something that many people do, erroneously, by the way. It's not something that you should imitate. Instead of choosing one of these possibilities that it is included in the response, they try to create, as I say, a third option, or instead, they try to create a middle ground response. Something like in their response, they say, I'm not convinced by any of these perspectives. So let me please review this topic by offering some advantages and disadvantages of each part. That is what they normally do. And dear students, this is not something actually correct. This is not something you should imitate, dear students, okay? Why? Because think about it. Why do you think that ETS is here designing this question this way? That is to say, offering you two possibilities to choose from. The reason is because remember that this exam is mostly taken because people are applying for master degrees or for job positions, right? So what happens when you are applying to a university? The university wants to make sure that you are somebody who is able to defend your own ideas, and that you would enrich the campus activity if you're accepted into that university. And a very good manner to do so is by testing you in these type of questions that ask you to choose a particular position, okay? So please, dear students, when you are responding to these questions, always identify yourself with one of the positions they offer you. Go for one of the ones they give you. Go for one of the possibilities they offer you. Don't invent a third one, or don't use a middle ground response, okay? Because as I say, they are trying to see if you're able to stand up and to, well, offer a response that defends a particular position, all right? So please have that in mind, it's very important. Well, fantastic. Now, let us listen to a response that I prepared, that I recorded myself for this question. And please, I want you to try to identify in my response, when you listen to it, what type of a structure I'm using. Okay, here I have the response. And you're going to notice that there is a very, very marked structure that I'm using. There is a template that I'm using that I'm going to share with you, of course, but nonetheless, for now, try to identify it by yourself. Pay attention to how I start my response, how I develop my response in the middle, how I end my response. Pay attention to all those details, okay? I think that all those things are very relevant and important for you to understand the response later on when I share my template with you. Okay, so please, let us listen to my response. And remember, the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to state my opinion, and then I'm going to offer a defense of that opinion. I'm going to offer some reasons and illustrations that support my opinion, okay? Let us listen together to my first response to this question.
Okay, with regard to the topic, I believe that a person's career is the most important task in life. I believe this way because of the following reasons. First of all, children are not necessarily a positive addition to the world. Maybe they turn out to be criminals. For example, I had an uncle who had a child that got into drugs and began stealing things. Secondly, if you're really good at your profession, you can come off with a revolutionary idea to positively affect people's life. As I want, for example, to be able to enact a law to allow people to create enterprises with very low taxes to improve their quality of life.
Great, there you are. So what can I tell you? That as you notice in this response that I offered, what I did was I presented my opinion, I presented my position on this topic that we have just read, and then I offered two arguments and two illustrations in order to support my position. In this case, if you noticed, I went for the position that basically proposed that is your career the most and single, the single most important contribution you can make to society, right? And well, I offer, as I say, two arguments, and I offered two illustrations, all right? So now, before I examine those illustrations and arguments, let us listen to one question that is different from the one we have just listened to. And then I'm going to be, as I say, breaking up my response, explaining you the template, and making sure that you understand how to follow this structure. Because what I did, and you're going to notice it right now, is that I was following a structure. I had a predetermined manner to respond it, and I used it. So as I say, I'm going to be teaching you that for you to apply the same structure in your responses and in your questions. And trust me, that is going to be very, very important and helpful. Okay, so please, it's time for me now to read with you the new question for this second illustration. It says the following: some people think that the criminal justice system should exist to punish wrongdoing, whereas others believe it should be used to prevent people from reoffending after the sentence is over. Which opinion do you find more persuasive? Okay, that's the question. Fantastic. So now let us listen to my response to this question, and notice, okay, try to identify that I'm going to use exactly the same structure and even with the same phrases and sentences. Listen to what I say.
Okay, with regard to the topic, I believe that justice systems should exist to punish wrongdoings. I believe this way because of the following reasons. First of all, because it is fairer to punish people with retributive justice, that is, to punish what they have done. For example, I saw yesterday a man who had raped a poor girl. He must be punished because he committed such atrocity and not otherwise. Secondly, because if you punish people very severely for what they did, you disencourage them to do it again. For example, I know of a politician that did not embezzle again of his authority after he got in jail.
Good. As you listened, I followed the exact same pattern, right? I offer my opinion and one illustration, excuse me, one argument, one illustration, second argument, second illustration. So let me now show you, please, the structure that I was using, and let us comment a little bit on how I used it in these cases, okay? Here you have it. And this is the structure that I also recommend you to follow when we practice later on tonight and also in our following classes, because for this task is well, more compelling and more important for us to practice and practice instead of discussing theory, okay? So let us, excuse me, here is the structure. Let us see the structure that I was following. As you can see, the structure basically consists, dear students, of 4 different steps. For example, look at the first step, right? It says, with regard to the topic. And if you notice, this is basically an introductory sentence, right? What I did when I was, what I did when I was responding was to always start and preface my responses with this sentence. With regard to the topic, I always said, right, you listen to my responses with regard to the topic. And after I said that, I offered my opinion. With regard to the topic, for example, in the first question, I said, with regard to the topic, I believe that a person's career is the most important contribution that he can make to society, right? That's it. That was my opinion. As you can see, it's a very short and concise opinion. You shouldn't actually spend long time here in this part. That is the first step in the response, because this is basically the introduction to your response, and you shouldn't certainly spend more time here than the necessary, okay? So as I say, very short and concise opinion, very short and concise position. With regard to the topic, for example, in the second response, right, I said, with regard to the topic, justice systems should be used in order to punish wrongdoings, and that was it. That was my opinion, right? So after you finished with this first step, that, as you can see, is basically the introduction with regard to the topic and your opinion, you go to the second step. That is a transition phrase. As you can see in this case, dear students, I have a transition phrase that consists in this: because of the following reasons. After I stated my opinion, I always said, I believe this way because of the following reasons, right? And this transition phrase is useful, dear students, because remember, you're trying to convince your reviewer that your position is right. And the way you can do that is by making your response very organized and clear. That is to say, that it's easy to follow. And of course, your reviewer is going to thank you very much when you are able to, as I mentioned, offer a response that stands a very clear and organized response instead of one, excuse me, that is super difficult to follow because you don't know when he's starting, when he's finishing. Use this sentence, okay? When you finalize with your opinion and you are about to enter your arguments, use, I believe this way, or I think this way because of the following reasons, okay? And then you start with what? The first argument. This is the third step, third argument. So look at it. This first argument, right? This first argument. What is the point here in this regard? The first point is that, or the first argument is that you have to be able to offer a very short sentence as an argument. An argument is basically a reason, a motive you have for thinking the way you think, right? Now, what is going to be that argument? That argument can be whatever you can think of. Now, please don't try to come up with super clever arguments, or don't think that if you don't have a fantastic argument, your response is not valid. No, every argument, any argument, it's fine, okay? As far as it, of course, supports and helps your case, it's a good argument. You can use it, all right? You don't have to always come up with a very clever argument, as I say. Now, if you notice, for example, every single argument that I offered in my responses was very short. For example, when I was in my first question, my first argument, right, was, with regards to the topic, I believe that a person's career is the most important contribution because of the following reasons. First, children are not necessarily a positive addition to the world. That was the first reason I proposed, right? For thinking that is your career the greatest contribution you can make to society. So if you think about it, dear students, what I was doing is offering a very short sentence. And that is very important for you, dear students. Your argument must not be something super large and extensive. Please make it very, very, very short, very concise, very succinct, very clear, because when you make short sentences, you make clear statements, you make very clear ideas. So that's the first reason why your arguments should be very, very short, not super extended or not very much developed, okay? And the second reason is because your students, the mechanism, the means you're going to use in order to develop your argument, to explain it further, are not more words. What you're going to do instead is that you're going to offer, as I told you, an illustration. Instead of giving a very long argument, trying to explain it and re-explain it once again and once again, what you're going to do is, when you finalize with your short argument, you're going to go immediately to the illustration. That was exactly what I did, right? If you pay attention to my responses. For example, in the first question, I offered my argument, right? I said, first of all, children are not necessarily a positive addition to the world. And then I said, right, for example, or as an illustration, I have an uncle who had a child who got into drugs and began stealing things, right? So what am I doing with this illustration? If you notice, I'm offering a very, very personal and a specific illustration that makes my argument more comprehensible. I'm not re-explaining my argument. Instead of that, I'm using an illustration. And tell me if that is not something natural. For example, when we started our class today, I started to talk about the speaking section task number 1. And when I finalized with my theoretical explanation, what did I do? I offer you 2 illustrations for you to understand what I was saying more clearly, right? So that is a very natural thing to do. So instead of trying to explain your argument and make it super large, make a very short argument, as I say. 1 sentence is fine, 2 as a maximum. 1 argument is basically, as I say, 1 sentence or 2 sentences as a maximum, in which to explain your reason for holding that opposition. And then you offer your illustration that helps you to develop that argument further, to explain that argument further, okay? To make it more comprehensible, if you want, to your reviewer. So that's the reason why in your illustrations, dear students, you should be spending more time, you should be emphasizing more. And as I say, the formula for having very good illustrations is to always make them very personal and very specific. That's how you make them very compelling and convincing, specific and personal arguments. Now, illustrations, very specific and very personal illustrations. Now, for example, let us come back to the illustration I offered. I said, right, children are not necessarily a positive addition to the world. That was my argument, very short, if you notice. Then I offered the illustration that is larger. I said, I have an uncle who had a child who got into drugs and began stealing things, and he became a criminal, right? That was my illustration. If you notice, my illustration there is very personal and is very specific. And now, by the way, dear students, this illustration is not true, right? Because in my own life, I don't have an uncle who had a child, that is to say a cousin, who got into drugs and began stealing things or something. No, I don't have, okay? Thankfully, I don't. So what am I saying this anyways? I'm saying this and I'm using this as an illustration because I made this illustration up. This is an invention of myself. And maybe you say, but is that legal? Yeah, certainly. It's totally legal. Because, dear students, this is not an exam about honesty, okay? Your honesty is not being evaluated in this exam. This exam is evaluating how well you speak English. And you have to use any means necessary in order to demonstrate how good you are at speaking English and defending positions and offering arguments and defenses. So as I say, please, if you don't have an illustration of your own life that demonstrates and exemplifies your arguments, feel totally free to make them up, invent your illustrations, okay? You can do it, totally free. And as I say, you have to make them very personal and specific. What do I mean by personal? That is related to your own life or to the life of somebody who is very nearby you, your own family, your best friends, etc., etc. Because that's how you show that this idea is relevant to your own life, okay? But if you have, for example, if you have an experience, if you have an example of your own life that you can actually and indeed use in order to exemplify the opinion, do it. For example, in the first question, right, when I said my second argument, I said, secondly, if you are very good at your profession, you can come up with a revolutionary idea to help people's life. I said that as a second argument, right? As you can see, very short. I offered this illustration. I said, as a law student, I want to be able to enact a law in the future to allow people create businesses and enterprises without paying taxes in order to improve their quality of life. That was my particular illustration. And by the way, this is true of my life. I do want to create this law in the future. I do want to enact this law in the future. And I want to do it, in order to help people to create and develop these businesses without paying taxes. So great. In this case, I identify a particular occasion and a moment in my life in which I was able to demonstrate that my point is actually relevant and applies to my life. That if you are good at your profession, you can help people's life without actually raising family, right? As I told you, I'm trying to defend that position that is actually your career, your profession, what stands as the greatest contribution you can make to society. My second argument, that if you are very good at your profession, you can help people's life by creating revolutionary ideas. What is my illustration? That in the future, I want to enact a law in order to allow people to create businesses and to create enterprises without paying taxes. Tell me if that is not a very good manner to help people's life. It is, right? So given that is true in my life, I'm using it as an illustration. And notice it's very personal because I'm speaking about myself, about my studies, about my ambitions, and also being very specific, if you notice. Why? Because in this case, here, students, I am mentioning what type of law I want to create, right? And that's just saying, in the future, I want to create a law in order to help people. I'm just saying also here, what type of law I want to create. I'm saying I want to create a law in order to allow people to create businesses and enterprises without paying taxes. That is what I'm saying, very specific, right? I'm not being super generic and saying, in the future, I want to create a law and that's it. No, I'm specifying what type of law I want to create. And that is what makes a very good illustration. It's personal and it's specific, all right? So last thing here I want to remark, look at the order in which these arguments and illustrations are placed. It's always argument, illustration, okay? That is the order. Is first argument, first illustration. Second argument, second illustration. It's not illustration argument, okay? So please respect the order. It's first argument and the illustration for that argument. It's second argument and the illustration for that second argument. It's like that, okay? Because respecting this pattern, you're going to make your response very understandable, very clear, and to be compelling and convincing to your reviewer. That is at the end what you want in order to get these high scores all of you are looking for, okay? So please have that in mind. Fantastic. Now, I want to leave here some space. Do you have any questions, dear students, with regard to the section, with regard to the template, something that I could clarify? Please tell me. Abigail, Roy, Cecilia, Mariana, questions? Is there any question with regard to the section, with regard to this template that we're going to use? Because by the way, we're going to practice right now, okay? That is what we're going to do. We're going to practice. Any question, anything that I can clarify, tell me. No? Okay. Oh, Mariana has a question. Okay. Yeah, please, dear Mariana, go ahead.
I have a question, Mr. We should be do three reasons and one conclusion, or is necessary to reason?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Mariana. Yeah. Yeah. You should include in your response 2 arguments, okay, and 2 illustrations. Of course, I mean, it's not the capital sin not to include 2, but we are looking for high scores, right? We're looking for very good scores, and therefore people who get very high scores in this exam always present 2 reasons and 2 illustrations, okay? So that number should be definitely our objective, because if we just present 1 argument, it's like our response is not that much compelling, it's not that much convincing, because we are not offering a very good case in favor of our position, okay? And with regard to the topic you said of the conclusion, here it is not necessary to make conclusion. It's a very good question, by the way, because many people are always used to offer conclusions whenever they are responding to every part of the TOEFL exam. And in this part, dear students, I actually recommend you not to include a conclusion. Why? Well, because, dear students, think about it. Conclusions are merely summaries, right? I mean, the way people understand and conceive conclusions is that when people normally say, I want to include a conclusion, what they mean is that they want to include a summary of what they have said, right? Something like, well, to conclude, I have said this and this and that, and this because of that, and etc. So they make a summary, basically. Now, if you think about it, a summary is basically a repetition of everything you have already said. Therefore, if you think about it, a summary is not something really valuable to the reviewer, right? Because you're not adding anything relevant to the information you have already presented. You're not actually coming up with a new mechanism of speaking you want to test or something. You're not actually helping your response. Actually, I would say it's dangerous because think about it. Imagine that you offer a fantastic response and that you still have 10 seconds on the clock. And because you want to offer a conclusion, you go about giving a conclusion and you get nervous at the end and you start, I don't know, freezing out or I don't know, committing mistakes in grammar or orthography. It will be terrific, right? I mean, not in a good sense, it will be terrible. So as I say, better if you don't include a conclusion. And if you have remaining time, for example, imagine that you present your response in 35 seconds and you look at the clock and your chronometer says you still have 10 seconds to respond. Well, you say, all right, what can I do? You look at your notes, right? You look at your arguments, you look at your illustrations, because of course you have to take notes, right? In order to take this, you always have your sheet of paper, as I explained yesterday. So here you write down the structure, this is structure, right? And you write down on your paper what arguments and illustrations you're going to offer. You look at your paper and you say, okay, here I could expand. And you can expand. You can come back to that part and say, okay, I want to add this new information. But a conclusion is not something that I personally recommend. Of course, you're totally free to add it if you believe that the response wouldn't be complete without a conclusion. But I personally believe that the conclusion doesn't particularly add positive things to the response. I have never used a conclusion in my responses for this question. In any ways, I always got fantastic scores. Okay, so as I say, it is up to you, but nonetheless, I wouldn't recommend. Okay, is that fine, dear Mariana?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, dear Mariana. Fantastic. There you are. Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other question, dear students? Any other thing that I could clarify? No? Okay, fantastic. So, last recommendations for you, okay? There is no right or wrong position, excuse me, there is no right, there is no right or wrong position to choose. I'm so sorry. This is very important because, for example, dear students, sometimes when you see a question, you're gonna find out that you have a position on that topic. You have a particular opinion on that subject. And sometimes it's very difficult, and I know that you comprehend what I say, it's very difficult for us to defend the ideas we hold in our actual lives. It's very difficult to explain why we believe the things we believe. So sometimes, dear students, for you, if you see a question that gives you the opportunity to respond about a topic in which you have an opinion, but you know it's very difficult to defend that opinion, and you see that the other position they give you as an option for you to respond, it's easily defendable. It's easier to defend, easier to talk about. Go for the other one, even if, as I say, that position doesn't represent your actual belief in the real world. As I say, this is not an exam about honesty, all right? So it's not necessary for you to always remain very, very loyal to your actual beliefs. You can, in this case, go for the contrary belief that you know it's easy to defend, and that is going to be totally fine, all right? Because first of all, nobody's going to notice it. And secondly, as I say, we are trying to use the best mechanisms and techniques we find in order to demonstrate how good we speak English. Therefore, if you know that it's super difficult to defend a position, why should you bother yourself to go and defend one? You should actually go for the one that is easier to defend and that you would feel more comfortable talking about, right? Even if, as I say, that particular topic is not what you believe in the actual world, okay? And secondly, when you are responding, dear students, please avoid making good commentaries about the contrary position. Because as I told you, right, you have to choose a position. So for example, imagine that you are defending, as I did, that it is your work, it is your career, the greatest contribution you can make to society. Fantastic. Now, if you notice in my response, I never offer any positive commentary. Sorry, I never offered any positive commentary of the contrary position. I never said, for example, but raising a family is also good because you have the chance to help people by educating them with good moral values. I never said, right, anything positive with regard to my contrary position, the one I didn't choose to defend. And that is something you should actually imitate. Never say anything positive with regard to the other position you are not defending. Because if you start to talk about good things of the contrary position you are not defending, your response is going to turn ambiguous. And of course, you want to avoid ambiguity because ambiguity doesn't allow the reviewer to understand your point and it's not going to give you a high qualification, okay? So as I say, when you choose a particular position, defend that one. The other one, you can actually talk about negative things of that particular position. If you're going to talk about your other position, say negative things about the other one, because as I say, you are debating. You are trying to show that the other is false and yours is fine, right? So concentrate on your particular position. Better not to speak about the other position, but if you're going to mention it at some point, never positive things, okay? Always negative things, always objections, always trying to demonstrate that they are wrong and you are right. But as I say, preferable is to avoid any commentary on the other position and concentrate yourself in giving your arguments and your illustrations for the position you have decided to defend, okay? And last and final recommendation, never speak with subjunctive mood. Never say in your response, maybe, or perhaps, I guess, probably. Those type of expressions do not express confidence. And remember that you're trying to convince your reviewer that your position is actually true. Therefore, what you have to do in this case is, as I mentioned, trying to demonstrate that you are sure, you are secure, you are confident of your position. How can you do that? By offering very affirmative sentences throughout your response. Say, this is what I believe because of this reason. This is this way. This is the fact, right? I mean, speaking in a very objective and in a very affirmative way, all right? That is what is going to help your response to feel very much, as I say, confident, very much convincing, compelling. That is what you want, okay? The effect you want to get for your response, all right? Fantastic. So it's now time for us to go and practice, okay, together. So please let me go here to my simulator, and we're going to start, okay, with our practice. Very good. Well, so please, all of you, grab a piece of paper, okay? Grab a pencil, grab a pen, something to write down with, because we're going to practice, all right? So please look at my screen. We have seen this menu already before. As I told you, here you have the instructions that are not necessary for you to read because you know what to do already. Here, the question, okay? So let us read it together. I'm going to paste it to the chat box. If you want to read it more comfortably, it's fine, okay? Here you have it. So let's go. It says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Why or why not? Use details and examples to support your answer. Listening to music while studying is a bad idea because it makes the time spent less effective. Okay? And you have a preparation time of 15 seconds and 45 seconds to respond. Okay? So please, all of you dear students, start thinking about your response. And what I recommend you is the following. Take your sheet of paper. Let me show you this picture, right? It's in blank, right? You have your sheet of paper. What you have to do first is to copy the structure you're going to use. What is structure? This one. Copy the structure, okay? This one that we have discussed, and I hope you have already taken your screenshots or you have taken notes on this. This structure, copy this structure on your paper and leave for you some spaces between each point. For example, in this case, this is a template for the second task that we have not discussed yet, but imagine it is the first one. With regard to the topic, right, 2 points, and you leave some blank space. And below that, you write, because of the following reasons. 2 points, you leave some blank space. Firstly, blank space. Secondly, blank space. You write down your structure, you write down your template, and when you have that, and when you read the topic as we have done right now, the only thing you're going to do is you're going to write down your opinion, right? In the blank space you left above, you're going to write down your opinion. In the middle, where you left the space after you mention your transition phrase, you're going to write down your first argument, your illustration, for you to remember what to respond in your time, right? So please, obviously, you're not able to write down everything. Just write down something to remember what your arguments are. Here, for example, you can use the technique that we learned last week, abbreviation. You can use information words. Use all those things because, I mean, all those recommendations are very useful and relevant in this part of the exam, okay? So let us start then with the response. All of you, dear students, please start preparing your responses now. There you are, very good. And now it's time for you to respond, okay? So please, I'm going to be asking you one by one to turn on your microphone and deliver your responses for this particular question we have received, okay? And then I'm going to offer some feedback at the end, all right? So please, dear Roy, could you please delight us with your response for this question? Please,
Sure.
Thank you very much. So please start responding to this question now.
I disagree with the topic that listening to music while studying is a bad idea because for the following reasons. First of all, it helps you to concentrate because you will not listen other sounds that are around you. So you can focus on what are you doing. A second reason is that you will be just you and the music and the task that you are doing. So you will be help to concentrate in what you are doing or what you are studying. That's because I disagree with that topic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, dear Roy. Fantastic. Okay, let's continue. Please, dear Abigail, could you be the second in this round? Please turn on your mic and start responding to this question now.
With regard to the topic about music, I am disagree because of the following reasons. Firstly, when you are studying with music, and secondly, stay very concentrated. Are you doing? For example, when I try to study with music, I usually sing, and this distracts me a lot.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Abigail. Very good. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, please, dear Mariana, could you delight us with your response for this question? Please have your microphone prepared and start responding to the question now.
Yes. Okay, to begin the reading passage, I think I don't agree with the study with music is bad because following reasons. First, music stimulates brain. For example, when you study, you have more concentrate and help. And also, the second reason is because this means the stress, so music is relaxing for study. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Mariana. Fantastic. Very good. Great. So, and finally, our dear Cecilia, please help us with your response. You can start, please, responding to the question now.
Well, I disagree with this topic that listening music while studying is a bad idea because for me, music helps calm anxiety while we are studying. Depend of the type of music. For example, when we are listening calm music or calm sounds, that helps with concentrate and with calm anxiety. And yes, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cecilia. Fantastic. Very good. All right. Good. So, fantastic. So let me offer you some feedback. Thank you very much, dear students. Those were very good responses, by the way. All right. So let me offer some feedback to all of you. Well, so for example, Roy here, it was a very good response, the one that you presented. You offer here the argument that music helps you to concentrate, and that's the reason why you believe it is not actually true that music doesn't allow you to spend this time effectively when you are doing some tasks at the same time. It was a very good argument. Here, well, of course, what I would recommend would be to offer a more personal, right, and specific illustration. Something like, I don't know, for example, yesterday, I was in charge of preparing a presentation for my work. Nevertheless, I started to listen to Guns N' Roses music, and I just got deconcentrated, right? Something like that. Or, excuse me, in your case, it's the other way, right? It's like I started to listen to Guns N' Roses music, and I started to get very much concentrated, right? I mean, something like that. Being very specific, very personal, commenting on yourself, or you could have talked about your sister instead, saying, I don't know, my sister was preparing for a very important examination the other day, and because she listened to Bruno Mars, she was able to actually concentrate and perform very well on her exam, right? Something like that. But very good response, dear Roy. Let's continue with Abigail. So Abigail here as well, very good response. I like it. You offer a very good argument and illustration when you said, right, that, yeah, it deconcentrates because when you are listening to music, you think while you are listening to music. And of course, that instead of making you concentrate on your papers and stuff like that, makes you concentrate on the lyric. Fantastic. That's a very good illustration. So my only observation here with regard to the response would be in the introductory phrase, when you say with regard to the topic, is with regard, like with G, gato, with regard to the topic. Okay, now with reward, I have listened that you say, but it's okay, don't worry. Okay, it's a common mistake. So with regard to the topic with G, like gato, with regard to the topic. But apart from that, very good. Thank you very much, dear Abigail. Fantastic. Let's continue with Mariana. Mariana offered here fantastic illustration, arguments. She offered, for example, she said, music stimulates your brain. And there is a very, very good argument. And here, precisely what like to me, in order to make this response perfect, because both arguments were fantastic, were very well thought, would be illustrations to each of those arguments. For example, here, you said, Mariana, music stimulates my brain, or it stimulates your brain. Here you could have said, tomorrow I'm planning to study for my TOEFL exam, and I'm going to be listening to, I don't know, The Weeknd's music in order to stimulate my neurons, something like that, right? Fantastic. And when you said music helps you to relax as well, you could have said instead, when I am about to prepare myself for, I don't know, making a presentation, an oral presentation, I always listen to Taylor Swift's calm music in order for me to concentrate, right? Or relax. That could have been a fantastic response by offering very personal and specific illustrations, right? But the arguments were incredible. Thank you very much. It was very good. And finally, our dear Cecilia as well, she offered a very good argument here as well. She said, when you listen to calm music, it helps you to concentrate as well. And that is certainly true. And she offered here that argument, and it's very good, it's very well thought. So here as well, as I recommend to our dear Mariana, the thing would be to complement that with an illustration, something like, I don't know, when I am about to postulate for a job interview, I always relax myself and concentrate myself with music by, I don't know, who composes very calm music, I don't know, by, I don't know, One Direction, just because comes to my mind, right, or whoever. But the point is that I listen to calm music because I want to prepare myself for this job interview that I'm about to face and confront, right? I mean, that, as I say, makes your argument way more understandable. It makes it compelling because you are demonstrating that that applies to your own life and you are making it very convincing, right? So that is what we're trying, the effect we are trying to get in this type of responses, all right? But very good. It was a fantastic response. And as you can see, all of you had incredible performances. So as I say, it's a matter of practicing. Tomorrow and past tomorrow, it's going to be just about practice. So please don't worry about that. We're going to be practicing a lot. And here I have a gift for you before we go. Let me send this to you. I was creating this compilation for you. And well, I was working on this this afternoon, sorry. And it's basically a compilation, as I say, of different free resources for you to practice this section whenever we are off classes. There you have it, you can access. It's free material, as I say, in order to practice for the speaking section. You can use it whenever you want in order to practice, okay? So please enjoy that. And I'm going to be sending something else as well later on throughout the night. That is a very important website that I know that you're going to appreciate in order to practice, okay? But very good. So we're going to stop our class here tonight. It's a very good class, I think. And well, I'm going to take your assistance, okay? So please wait for me a little bit. And please, dear students, help me with your kind responses to our traditional poll. You know that I always appreciate your responses, okay? So please help me with that. And now let's, if you have any question, any commentary as well, please express it. Feel free to express it. Let's see. Great. So let's hear present Oscar Samuel Gonzalo. All right, Ismael. Let me see. Thank you very much for your responses, dear students. Could you please help me with one more poll? You know that because it's Wednesday, we have to fill 2 polls, right? So please help me with the second one. So sorry for bothering you, but you know, the company. So is here present our dear Abigail Graciela?
Present.
Thank you very much, dear Abigail. Fantastic. What about our dear Brian Roy?
Present.
Thank you very much, dear Roy. Let's continue with Araceli Patino. Okay, she wasn't here today. What about our dear Mariana?
Here.
Thank you very much, Mariana. And finally, our dear Cecilia Vargas.
Present.
Thank you very much, dear Cecilia. There you are. Fantastic. So thank you very much, dear students, for having me here with me. Tomorrow we're going to practice, so please make sure to have your microphone prepared, to be in a very quiet space, and to have your paper prepared because it's going to be a super practical class, okay? See you tomorrow. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. See you
Thank
Good
you.
night,
tomorrow.
teacher. Thank you.